Welcome to the ATA Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Baird. Each month on the podcast, we bring you news and insights from the American Translators Association. This month, we're talking to our 2021 candidates for the ATA Board of Directors. In this podcast, you'll meet the candidates for President-elect, Secretary, and Treasurer, all 2-year terms. This year's elections will be held on Thursday, October 28th at ATA's 62nd Annual Conference in Minneapolis, Minnesota. If you're an ATA member and you'd like to vote this year, please make sure you are a voting member. ATA certified translators and ATA credentialed interpreters are automatically voting members. All others need to apply, but the process is super easy and takes only a few minutes, and no paperwork is required. Follow the link in the show notes or go to ATA's website and type membership review in the search box. Be sure to apply before September 30th to be eligible to vote in October. I'd like to thank all the candidates for taking the time to join me. And on behalf of ATA, I'd like to thank you, our listeners, for taking the time to listen in and get to know this great group of people. These are ATA members who are willing to step up and serve you, the association, and essentially all of us working in the T&I industry. By the way, this isn't your only chance to learn more about the candidates. The September-October issue of the ATA Chronicle features the candidate statements. Plus, each of them will get a chance to speak at the ATA conference before the election, at the annual meeting of voting members. All right, let's bring on our candidates. First up are the two candidates for President-elect, Veronica de Michelis and Jeff Kobe. Veronica, welcome to the podcast, and thank you very much for your willingness to serve ATA.
Thank you so much, Matt, and thanks for hosting the ATA podcast.
Let's start by having you tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you based and what kind of translation or interpreting work do you do?
So I'm based in Katy, Texas, which is just outside Houston. I'm a native Russian, and my husband and I moved to Texas almost 10 years ago. I'm an ATA certified English to Russian translator, specializing in website, software, and app localization, as well as translation on topics such as marketing, corporate communications, human resources, and social responsibility. And in addition to that, I'm an instructor in the Translation and Interpretation program at Houston Community College, where I teach localization and audiovisual translation.
What do you like most about being a translator?
I really enjoyed the challenge of taking something that was created in another language, another culture, and making it not only accessible, but also meaningful to readers or users who speak my native language and come from my culture. I find this work incredibly rewarding and always different. Every day there is a new challenge, a new word puzzle to solve, and it's very fulfilling to know that the products of our work make a difference for those on the receiving end. I also love the strong sense of community among translators and interpreters. We work together and support each other from afar, and I feel that the pandemic has only brought us closer. I also really like that it's a growing, evolving field. Like many other professions, ours is affected by the changing technologies, so we always have to adapt, always work on the next thing, and future-proof our career and stay current. Some people also say it's a saturated market, but I really like that there are always new people joining our field. I see it as an opportunity for growth, mutual enrichment, and collaboration. And those things combined, the evolving technologies, the linguistic challenges, and the changing market make it a very rewarding career, I think.
Now, when did you join ATA and why did you join the association?
I joined ATA 5 years ago because I saw no better place for me to get an understanding of the specifics of the translation and interpreting profession. I was making a leap from a career in the corporate world to running my own business, and I felt that in ATA I will find everything I need to get started. And this is exactly what happened. My membership in ATA was the best decision I made in those early days of my freelance career. I learned so much about the art and craft of our profession, found my community, established connections with colleagues, made friends, prepared for the certification exam and passed it, and found the tools and resources that I needed to run and grow my business. I think that many people can relate to this, whether you're a newbie or a veteran translator or interpreter. You often have questions and wonder what is the best course of action. And most of us, we work alone. So rather than rather than going through trial and error or doing research online, what can be better than talking to a colleague or researching it through a community of colleagues whom you trust? I think that as professionals, we owe it to ourselves, our business, and our clients to stay relevant, connected, and always work on our skills and expertise. And I strongly believe that ATA is the place to be for all professional translators and interpreters.
Finally, Veronica, why are you running for president-elect?
Well, since my early days in ATA, I have wanted to give back to our community, and not just by words and ideas, but by actions. And I believe that by getting actively involved in the association, we can make it stronger and make sure that it benefits its members for many years to come. Our professional world has changed and it's constantly evolving. So I ask myself as a member, has our association evolved with the times? And are we in the best position to help our members adapt and succeed? Our world is very different from the one more than 60 years ago when ATA was established. It is no secret that both the translation and interpreting markets are changing, and we all find ourselves wondering what this means for the future of our profession and our businesses. And I want to bring new life, new energy into the association so that it evolves with the times and offers members what they need in today's reality and help them build a forward-facing career. And I think that my volunteer experience in the Slavic Languages Division, Membership Committee, as Chair of Professional Development Committee, and as Director on ATA's board has taught me what is important to ATA members and how to communicate and work together with colleagues. I am known for being willing to put in the time and effort to achieve tangible, lasting results for our association. An example of this is my work as Chair of ATA's Professional Development Committee in particular. Our members rely on us to help them grow as professionals, and we needed to step up to the task, especially last year when the pandemic started. And in just a year and a half, we have revamped ATA's professional development program by improving the quality, quantity, and variety of professional development opportunities. And we did all that while making sure that the program is financially sustainable. You can probably tell that I live and breathe all things professional development related, but also thanks to my previous corporate career, I have a strong background in administration, management, human resources, and public relations. And I'm confident that my expertise in these areas will come in handy in a position of president-elect and will benefit ATA. With our professional environment changing, the repercussions of the pandemic and ATA's declining membership, it is time to step up and be proactive. We need to make our association more modern, more relevant, more agile, all while taking care of our members' needs. And I want ATA to be the backbone of the translation and interpreting market, to be a support system for our members. With changes in technology, we need to hone our skills and expertise and make our businesses robust. And ATA should be there to provide these resources and learning opportunities to members and help members understand how the technology is changing, how the market is changing, and how they can prepare for that. I envision an association that is a beacon for translators and interpreters in the US and everywhere in the world, so that they say, ATA is the place to be. I see so much value in being a member, and I see so many exciting things happening in ATA that I want to get involved. So we need to strengthen our value to members, both in terms of support, programs, and offerings, advocacy, and access to world-class resources that help strengthen their translation or interpreting businesses. Much work is already being done by many ATA divisions and committees, and I would love to support these efforts and make sure that we do even more to benefit ATA members. ATA is my home, and I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunities, knowledge, and connections that I have made through my membership and as a volunteer. So the reason I'm running for the president-elect position is my desire to help re-energize and strengthen the association and to ensure that it's here for all of us when we need it for many years to come.
Veronica, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Matt.
Next, we have Jeff Kobe with us. Jeff, welcome to the podcast, and thank you very much for your willingness to serve ATA.
Thank you, Matt. I'm happy to be here, and I do love serving ATA.
Right on. Let's start by having you tell us a little about yourself. Where are you based, and what kind of translation or interpreting work do you do?
Okay, so I'm based in Kent, Ohio, which is in Northeast Ohio near Cleveland. I've been translating professionally since 1995, ATA certified in German to English and Dutch to English. And I specialize in business, legal, and financial translation. But I'm a part-time translator because my full-time job is as a professor of translation studies at Kent State University. And as part of that job, I've actually been learning new areas of translation, scientific, technical, and medical, because now I have to teach that as well. I'm also a certification grader for German English. I used to be the chair of the certification committee, and I've served 2 terms as an ATA board member. That's 6 years recently. And I'm president of ATA's nonprofit foundation, the American Foundation for Translation and Interpreting, and AFTI as it's called. So, and I live in Kent, Ohio with my wife. My 5 children have all pretty much moved out of the house. So that's who I am. I'm mostly either translating or I'm grading translation papers.
Then what do you like most about being a translator?
Well, it's the actual act of translating itself. I really, really love translating. It's the satisfaction of working through complex texts, the challenge of solving translation problems, and knowing that my work will help others in their daily work. There was a book written a few years ago by a translation professor that talked about translation flow. And the ideal translation flow is you're working through a translation and it's not too hard, but it's not too easy. And every once in a while you get a nice thorny translation problem to solve. You solve that problem, you feel really good about that, and then you can go on with your work. So part of it is the actual act of translating. And the other part of it is working with my colleagues in translation and interpreting. That's both consulting with people through our listservs and discussing difficult translation issues, or also, since I'm also a grader, we have a lot of discussions with the ATA graders about translation problems and how to best respond to those kinds of problems. So problem solving, and also working with my ATA colleagues on committees to improve the translation profession. So what I most like about being a translator is a lot of things. And, honestly, on an individual basis, if I get a really nice, long a brief from a lawyer that has a lot of argumentation and sarcasm about the other lawyer's arguments, that's something I really, really like to translate.
When did you join ATA and why did you join the association?
It was the fall of 1994. I had just been hired as a new translation professor at Kent State, and many of my colleagues were active in the association back then. One of them, Sue Ellen Wright, was my close colleague and mentor, and she and many others were telling me that ATA was absolutely the professional translation and interpreting organization that you had to belong to. So I actually joined in fall of 1994 because as a new professor, I didn't know what was going on. And the director of my institute said, I will pay for us to go down to Austin, Texas for the ATA conference, where I got a taste of what professional translation was all about, which I had really no idea at the time. But what I realized when I was down there was the extensive benefits of ATA membership, the networking, getting to know colleagues who are more experienced in the field, the vast amount of knowledge that is part of our association through all of the people who volunteer for it. So not only the networking, but also the knowledge at the conferences. And I made extensive use back then of the ATA Chronicle when I was developing my classes. And then I realized, okay, I have to be legitimate as a professor. I have to be a translator. I can't just say, oh, I'm a professor, therefore I know it. Not good enough. So I said, okay, I need to be certified. And obviously certification was the thing, one of the things that was really important in ATA and still is. So I got certified in 1995. And in addition, sort of all of these whys is sort of why did I join, but also why did I stay? The knowledge and the expertise of all of our members, which they generously share with newcomers and with each other. And honestly, the way that ATA works to improve the translation profession, not just benefits for its members, but thinking about how is it good for translation as a whole, and how can we interact with the world in a way that really promotes translation and makes it something more professional and more in the minds of the people who are making decisions.
Finally, Jeff, why are you running for president-elect?
I love to serve the association, and I believe I can really make a difference. I have contributed for many years in many different ways, and I want to continue to contribute and to improve ATA. I want to serve the members, and as I was just mentioning, serve the translation and interpreting profession as a whole. So I have experience leading committees and appointing people, and I've been working on several committees that I've chaired recently to make sure that we have a variety of viewpoints. It's not enough to just pick people that you know. One of the jobs of the leadership is to make sure that all of these viewpoints are represented, including people who are opposed to what you want to do or who have doubts. And I would say that ATA is arguably one of the most diverse associations in the world in many different ways. And so I think that my experience in bringing these viewpoints together and working with them constructively is one of the benefits that I would hope to bring to being president. I think I have the experience and the perspective to guide the association as president-elect and then as president. As president-elect, I'm looking forward to planning the Los Angeles and the Portland conferences. I know it's a huge amount of work, but with the support of the volunteers and the ATA staff at headquarters, I think we can make some really good conferences. I think we will be continuing to make hybrid conferences moving forward. The experiment in Minneapolis in offering hybrid and face-to-face is a good one, particularly because not everybody can come to the ATA conference physically in person. And even though it's a great experience, it's financially often not feasible. So having the hybrid will make it possible for more members to benefit from the ATA conference. As president-elect, I also look forward to chairing the Governance and Communications Committee as we discuss the member feedback on the proposal that was recently sent out to members for changing our membership categories, updating them to reflect the reality of our times now that are not the same as when membership categories were initially developed. I'm also looking forward to continuing to chair the Basic Credential Committee, which is a real opportunity, I think, for ATA to explore the possibility of recognizing our members who are at a professional level, but not necessarily available for certification. We have multiple levels of expertise, and I hope that something will come out of that committee that will expand the range of opportunities and benefits for our members. Ultimately, as president, my focus is going to be on ATA's members, on reaching out to more translators and interpreters, on advocating with industry and government for our members, and on improving the profession as a whole. Since together we are stronger, and as an ATA president, I can advocate for professionalism in the translation and interpreting industries. And ultimately, as president, I would support the new membership categories and the work on the National Registry and Basic Credential Committees, and work with the board and the volunteers to carefully develop these aspects that best benefit all of our members.
Jeff, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Matt.
Our next two candidates are running for secretary, Elena Brandt and Christina Helmericks. We're going to start with Elena. Elena, welcome to the podcast, and thank you very much for your willingness to serve ATA.
Thanks for having me today, Matt.
It's great to have you on. Let's start by having you tell us a little about yourself. Where are you based, and what kind of translation or interpreting work do you do?
Great, thanks. So as you know, my name is Elena Brandt. My pronouns are she, they. I'm based out of Monterey, California, so we're known as a language capital of the world. I have a master's degree in language, literature, and translation with a focus on Spanish to English translation from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. And after graduating, I took various jobs as a project manager. So my first project management job was with a multinational translation agency. My second job was with a small startup. And then my third job was with a technical documentation firm. In each of these project management roles, I felt that more training for project managers was needed. And so at the ATA 58 conference, I gave a presentation on project management. It was called the Project Life Cycle for Project Managers. I got very lucky. A professor in the Translation and Localization Management program at the Middlebury Institute of International Studies at Monterey saw my presentation and recommended me for a teaching job in the TLM program at MIS based on the presentation. So now I teach translation and localization management in the TLM program at MIS, and my courses focus on production management, when working with individual translators, whether those translators are in-house talent or independent contractors.
What do you like most about your work?
What I like most about translation and interpreting is the study of how a message that was originally conveyed in one cultural setting is rendered into another cultural setting. So in translation and interpreting, we all know that the goals are to produce accurate and faithful translations. But we also know as professionals that 100% accuracy and a 100% faithful rendition is impossible. There's always going to be some element of that original message that will be left behind if it's only the context that the message was delivered in. So I've always found it really interesting that for those who are trained and do translation and interpreting professionally, there's really strategic choices being made about what aspects of the message can be left behind and what aspects of the message should really be prioritized for the rendition. From the perspective of teaching about translation and localization management, I enjoy getting students thinking about these sorts of things, that it's not sort of a cut and dry business process where it's taking a product from A plus B equals C, but that there are all of these sort of cultural nuances that need to be navigated. And I enjoy having my students consider too the ethics behind the inequalities in language exchange that tend to dominate the way that work is produced. So even just English being a lingua franca, I enjoy having students think about how they can ethically navigate those inequalities in language exchange to make sure that language access, that the products that are being put out are the best products possible.
When did you join ATA, and why did you join the association?
I joined ATA in 2013. And I joined because I was volunteering at the time with my regional chapter of ATA, the Midwest Association of Translators and Interpreters, MATI, at the encouragement of my professors at UWM. They made it very, they encouraged us very much that if we got involved in professional associations, that it would be a great way to network, to get to know the industry, to even start giving back to the industry. Even if we, felt that we were just students and couldn't make a big impact at the time. So I put quite a lot into my volunteer experience as a director of MATI. We collaboratively got a newsletter going for the association. For instance, there were conferences every year as well. And I had such an awesome experience working with MATI and working with my colleagues in MATI that it seemed like a natural next step to join the National Association, to be able to take advantage of all the great conferences that are happening, to meet the translators and interpreters and project managers from all over the country.
Now, finally, Elena, why are you running for secretary?
I am running for secretary because I volunteer with a few different organizations right now. I volunteer with ASTM International Technical Committee F43 on Language Services and Products. That's the group that writes American national standards related to translation, interpreting, and localization. And I'm the membership secretary of that organization. I'm also, I'm a recent addition to the steering committee of the Coalition of Practicing Translators and Interpreters of California and America, also known as Coptic America. That's the group that helped get a carve out from AB5, the disruptive law over here in California that misclassified translators and interpreters in the state as employees rather than independent contractors to the language service companies they provide services to. So Coptic America is now facing the PRO Act on a federal level. And so there's a few other divisions that I'm involved with too in ATA, and I see this as a really great opportunity by being on the executive committee to liaise among these various organizations to make sure that I can be a person who is communicating what's happening with the various efforts in these different organizations so that we can have harmonization in how the ATA and the various organizations are responding to changes in the marketplace. I think I could do a good job at the role of secretary too. I am accustomed to taking notes while remaining actively engaged in discussions. And I understand too that the membership relies on board meeting minutes to know what's happening in the administration of ATA. And so I just thank the nominating committee very much for this nomination. I thank the members very much for considering me. And as with every year, the choices you have to make on where to cast your vote as members are not easy. But no matter the outcome, I can say from experience working with the candidates who are running that the association is in very good hands.
Elena, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Matt.
Next, we have Christina Helmerich with us. Christina, welcome to the podcast, and thank you very much for your willingness to serve ATA.
Morning. Thanks for calling, and thanks for setting this up.
It's great to have you on. Now, let's start by having you tell us a little about yourself. Where are you based, and what kind of translation or interpreting work do you do?
I live in Austin, Texas, and been here for many years. I started as a translator, and then I became an interpreter. Lately, since COVID, 99% of my interpreting is court interpreting, but I also work as a conference interpreter and as a legal translator.
What do you like most about being a translator and interpreter?
As an interpreter, I like the challenge of having to work right on the spot. I truly enjoy the challenge of being faithful to the speaker and making sure that what I render in the second language is what I truly believe the person was saying. So it gives them a voice. Translation is a challenge just because it really makes you hone your skills. It is great for supporting your interpreting work.
When did you join ATA, and why did you join the association?
I've been trying to find that out. I've been looking that up. I know I joined either the late 80s or early 90s for 1 or 2 years. But by 1994 or 96, I believe I started joining, or I became a continuous member of ATA. It may have lapsed a few years once in a while, but basically since the end of the 90s, I've been a member. And I joined it because at the time, it was the only place I could find where I could get support and learn from other people who were working in this field. There weren't many local organizations. In Austin, we had started AATIA, but all of it was being led by people who came from ATA. So that's why I joined. It was a good network to join.
Finally, Christina, why are you running for secretary?
I'm running for secretary because I've learned a lot with my work through ATA. I've learned a lot when I was on the board of NAGIT and became chair of NAGIT. And we went through a really rough spot while I was chair of NAGIT. I believe in associations, and I believe ATA has one of the best platforms and voices to speak for us as professionals, be we interpreters, be we translators, or both. And I believe it's one more way to give back to a profession and a community that has helped me throughout my life. And I want to also give a voice to freelancers and make sure that there is representation of freelancers, be we translators or interpreters, on the board and on the executive committee. I think the strength and the beauty of ATA is that voices from all sectors or portions of our profession are represented. And that's why I decided to run for secretary.
Christina, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. We really appreciate it.
No, thank you. Thanks for doing this.
Next, I'd like to welcome our two candidates for treasurer, John Milan and Ben Carl. First up is John Milan. John, welcome to the podcast, and thank you very much for your willingness to serve ATA.
Hey, Matt, thanks so much. Thank you for also hosting these podcasts and for organizing these interviews. I think, like a lot of members, I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Let's start by having you tell us a little about yourself. Where are you based, and what kind of translation or interpreting work do you do?
All right. Well, thanks. So I am currently based in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and I've lived there on and off for about since 2005. Although I did go back and forth to Brazil in 2011 and 2012, and spent some time living there again. But I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which, as a matter of fact, coincidentally, where I am recording this from, I'm currently visiting family in the neighborhood where I was born and raised. But I am a full-time freelance translator. I'm ATA certified, Portuguese to English. I also work Spanish to English. I'm an editor. I'm an economist. I'm a consultant as well. I've been in the industry for a little over 25 years now, and just doing a range of things. In terms of the translation side, I work a lot with finance and economics, business, government, academic translations. And typically I work a lot with banks and law firms and multilateral organizations, lots of organizations with offices throughout Latin America, because I do both Portuguese and Spanish. And I also translate some nonfiction. I've translated a half dozen books, things like an anthropological study of the Bade people in the Amazon, and I translated an anthology of essays on utopia, which that book itself was a pretty utopian ideal. So that was an interesting thing. I'm also a former adjunct professor of economics for 10 years in the late 90s and early aughts. I worked at a university in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And while I was there, I was also a freelance consultant. So that's the quick summary.
What do you like most about being a translator?
I think for me, it's the challenge, the intellectual stimulation. I'm very academically and just I have that sense that I like to feel like I'm learning something all of the time. There's real intellectual stimulation in what we do. I also think that as a freelance translator, there's the wonderful freedom that you get to work from wherever and pretty much whenever, and so there's a great autonomy there that I really enjoy about it. I like all the interesting things that I get to do when I translate, and I feel like I'm learning from one week to the next, which is great. And if I think a lot of our members are people like me, that they love to read and they love to learn, and so it's almost at times like when you're a translator and you're getting to do the type of work that you like, you're getting paid to do what you might be doing anyway in reading in multiple languages. So it's a real privilege.
When did you join ATA and why did you join the association?
Well, I joined in 2005. Like I said, I had been in Brazil for about 10 years and I moved back to the States in 2005. And at the time I had been translating part-time while I was living in Brazil, and I was a professor at the time. And I thought when I moved back to the United States that by joining ATA, it would really help me take this freelance business to the next level. It was a decision that I had made, that I wanted to make it my full-time profession. And I'd really been splitting time between lecturing and working as a business consulting, doing some translation work. I even worked as an interpreter in Brazil for a while. So doing a range of things, but joining ATA, I saw sort of this path forward to help me make this my main career. And at the same time, I actually joined an ATA chapter, which of course I recommend to everybody, Katie, which is the Carolina chapter where I moved to North Carolina. And I think those things, being involved in ATA, it's a way to really further this professional engagement. I had a chance to expand my network. I got ATA certified right away. And I just learned so much more about translation in the United States by being a member.
Well, finally, John, why are you running for another term as treasurer?
What a great question. First of all, I just appreciate even having this opportunity. I think it's a real honor. For some of the people that have been in ATA a bit longer, they know that traditionally the treasurer position was a 2-year, 2-term thing. So it was 4 years and out. And we've only recently expanded that to a 3rd term. I was definitely in favor of that, not just for myself, but I just think for the position in general, treasurer is one that takes a good bit to get up to speed. You need a full year to learn about the association's finances, to understand the financial statements, our investments, to look at the quarterly changes and things, to work with headquarters. So to have a little bit extra time after the fact is wonderful. And I was also in favor of the fact that these would be competitive elections, so that while we are talking about having 3 terms, you have somebody else there. So, if people have not been satisfied with the work that I'm doing, for example, or for treasurers in the future, you have that opportunity to choose. So I think those are both great. The association right now is facing a lot of challenges that I see with other similar not-for-profit organizations, things like declining membership. I had seen recently that other membership-based organizations, trade organizations in the United States, almost 50% over the past 10 years have been dealing with declining membership, right? And that means shrinking budgets. Everybody's trying to deal with technological innovations. And of course, we have just ever-shifting demands from our members. And so I think as treasurer, one of the things that I try to do is to put ATA on sound financial ground, and really to be in a position to address all of those issues. It's important to have a balanced budget, to understand the budgeting process. We want to make sure we have money in the bank. We want to make sure we have long-term secure investments that can cover our expenses and provide the money, have that money available to the membership so that we can do the things that they want to do. I'm really looking forward right now to continuing this work. And it's actually, for me, it's going on about 6 years, because even before I became treasurer. I joined ATA's Finance and Audit Committee back in 2015 to learn a lot about the background of how the finances work. And, I'm a translator and an economist, so I'm not just a word nerd, but I'm also a numbers guy. I love a good spreadsheet. I genuinely enjoy the budgeting process and analyzing financial statements and, just looking out for the association's financial health. So all those things are really important. And I just appreciate really this opportunity that ATA has given me and that the members have given me, putting me in this position. And I just look forward to continuing my work.
John, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks again, Matt. I appreciate it as well.
Next, we have Ben Carl with us. Ben, welcome to the podcast, and thank you very much for your willingness to serve ATA.
Thank you for having me, Matt.
Let's start by having you tell us a little about yourself. Where are you based, and what kind of translation or interpreting work do you do?
Great, thank you. So I am based in Long Beach, California. It's a city just south of Los Angeles, California. I've been here since October 2019. And we moved here after 6 years in Reno, Nevada, which is where I started my freelance translation practice after working at a large LSP for a couple of years. I am ATA certified for French to English translation, and I also do Chinese to English translation. And I specialize in corporate marketing and financial communications, as well as English copywriting for foreign businesses that want to do business in North America, so predominantly Anglophone Canada and the United States.
What do you like most about being a translator?
Being a translator for me is, so I gravitated towards, like many people, I gravitated towards languages very early on. I realized that I had an interest and an aptitude for languages in elementary school, and it was something that really motivated me through middle and high school, and something that I decided I wanted to focus a career on and build a business around. That being said, translation is something that I really enjoy because I love learning new things every single day. I love playing with words. And ultimately, I really like helping people communicate something of value, either to themselves or to their customers ultimately, because I work predominantly with businesses who are trying to sell either to other businesses or to their end customers. So I am really passionate about helping people convey their value and say what they want to say in a really meaningful and also a beautiful way. And with translation, I get to play with language all day long. I get to learn new things. I get to research. I get to think really critically about current events, about issues in the news, about markets, about consumer trends, about marketing trends, about financial trends. And all of these things are things that I find really interesting. And I just feel very lucky that I get to do that all day long, really.
So when did you join ATA, and why did you join the association?
When I started my freelance translation practice, it was 2013, and I had just moved to Reno, Nevada. And when I got to Reno, Nevada, I started looking for a local professional network that I could use to get my business off the ground and meet other people like me and sort of build a community, because I knew that I would be spending a lot of time in my home office. And at the time, the organization, the association in Reno, Nevada was the Nevada Interpreters and Translators Association. And Nevada is a really big state. So there's a chapter in Las Vegas, a chapter in Reno, and sort of people who are interspersed sort of between Reno and Las Vegas, which, is several hundred miles. So I was very fortunate to be able to dial into the local Reno NITA community. And through them, I realized that they were an affiliate of the American Translators Association. And I hadn't considered association membership, national association membership before then, but through NITA and what NITA could offer, and sort of realizing both the advantages and also the limitations of an affiliate and what I could gain by joining a national association, I decided that I should give it a try. And so I joined several years, I think a couple of years after I joined ANITA. And my first conference, ATA conference, really solidified my desire to be more involved in ATA. And that was in San Francisco. And San Francisco is really the closest city to Reno, Nevada. And so I was really fortunate to be able to go to meet so many amazing people. And it really kind of jump-started my interest in serving ATA and becoming more involved in the association.
Why are you now running for treasurer?
I am currently running for treasurer because I have been getting increasingly involved in a variety of different initiatives at ATA. I've been serving on the membership committee. I am involved in the French language division. I am becoming more involved in the advocacy committee. This volunteer experience has pointed me towards more direct involvement and more deliberate involvement in the association. And so board membership and running for the board seemed like a good fit. And the nominating committee approached me earlier this year and said that they felt that my background in financial translation, my Master of Business Administration, and just my translation experience would lend well to the position of treasurer, which is actually a position that I hadn't really considered before, to be perfectly honest. I read financial statements and financial reports often for my work. I help translate annual reports and various reporting and filings for businesses, international businesses, but I hadn't considered leveraging those skills in a position like treasurer. And so after learning about the position and learning about what it entails, I felt that I could rise to the challenge and decided to throw my hat in the ring.
Ben, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Matt, and good luck to all of the other nominees.
All right, that's a wrap. I'd like to thank everyone who helped produce the show today. Derek Platts mixed and edited the audio, and Mary David and Rashawn Paccarel at ATA headquarters provided editorial and technical support. And if you're not an ATA member, listen up. I've been a member for over 20 years. Joining ATA literally launched my freelance career, and I've never looked back. Nowadays, the demand for translators and interpreters is at an all-time high, but finding quality work isn't easy. ATA membership can make the difference. And ATA isn't just for translators and interpreters. Individuals, companies, and organizations can join. We have teachers and professors, hospital administrators, language company owners, technology developers, as well as language companies, universities, hospitals, and government agencies. If you'd like to know more, go to ATA's website, atanet.org. You can also check out past episodes of this podcast where we talk about the benefits of membership and what's currently happening in the association. Thanks again for listening, everyone. Talk to you again soon.